Awards, welcome to NAMM. We are here tonight to honor outstanding technical excellence and creativity in the world of sound. We haven't been able to do this since 2020. Can you believe it? Did you miss it? Did you miss, this is something that I missed was this sound. Do you remember this sound on the convention floor? When you walk around, people just trying out instruments. This sound only exists at NAMM. We should make a record, right? What do you think? That's good. You know what I love about the TEC Awards? This is the only place in the world where there's an award for best microphone preamp. I love that. That's what the world should be. We're at the coolest place in the world. It's really, as I was walking around the floor, I don't know if you guys go through this, I get this feeling whenever I look at a booth where, do you guys do this thing where there's something that I don't understand? I'm like, what? A plexiglass Telecaster with no headstock? Who would want that? But then a second later, I want it. Right away, I need it. That's what I need. I'm going to do some impressions for you. This is impressions of different types of people walking around the convention center, okay? First one's going to be musicians. Every musician that you know, musicians all have the same body, which is sloped down shoulders and kind of pigeon-toed, legs going inward. This is my impression of any musician walking around the convention. I'm going to do a sound engineer. Sound engineers look at everything sort of like, no. They're still, you can tell that they actually want to be there. And also back straight. These people always have their back straight. Engineer. This is something I like to see at the people walking around. These are people new to the music business. This is me at a booth, right, where it's way at the end and no one is there, and I feel bad for them. Do you ever feel bad for a booth? But you don't leave right away because you're like, you want to be polite? This is me trying to be polite and not walking away too fast. Thank you. Those are my main impressions. They only work in this room. That's why I'm so happy to do it. These past couple of years, there's been so much remote recording going on, and have you guys experienced this? I have so many extra microphones. I get sent all these microphones for home recording, and I don't understand how these companies made so many free microphones. Did you ever think there would be a day where microphone companies were like, no, keep it. That Shure 58, keep it. So with all that extra equipment, just sitting around the house, I have some ideas for what we could do with this stuff. And yes, this is prop comedy. And so I'm going to start off with extra microphones. This is an idea. This is an ice cream scoop microphone. There we go. Here's the first one. Do you guys have boxes of headphones? Unopened boxes of headphones. So something we could do with headphones is we could use them as drink holders to offer at a party. Works like this too, I think. There's that. Sorry, check this out. You know there's like electronic drums. The newest types of electronic drums is drums that look like acoustic shells. They look like regular drums, but they sound, you know, they're supposed to sound like regular drums, but it's just like made by Roland or something. I have the opposite. What are you upset about? Do you all work? This is gonna be, the payoff is gonna be so good. Side note, do you all really think that whenever there's like electronic drums that are supposed to sound real, don't you think they still, this does not leave the room, they still sound a little fake? A little tiny bit, I can always, anyway. So what I've got is, I've got an acoustic drum. Thank you. I've got an acoustic drum, right? And it's an acoustic drum, but made to look like an electronic pad. Thank you. That's it. All right. Anyway, really for real, I did this in 2019, and or 2020. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited. This is like one of my favorite things to do. It's just like I feel like we all speak the same language, and I like this sort of like level of like nerdiness to it. I do feel like we're kind of the coolest people around, right? Like this is the coolest thing. So let's get started. Let's have a great time. Thank you so much, and let's have a great night.
Thank you very much. I truly feel honored. It's an extraordinary thing to happen, and I thank you all very much, especially to this audience. It means so much, and I really appreciate it. Looking back, the 21st of January, 1964 was a Tuesday. And it was a very significant day in my life. That was the very first time I ever went into a real recording studio. I went into EMI Studios on Abbey Road. It wasn't called Abbey Road Studios yet. It was EMI on Abbey Road to record. Because my school friend Gordon Waller and I got signed by EMI, and we had a day in the studio to cut 4 or 5 tracks and see if we could come up with a single. I love the recording process. We were recording, by the way, for those of you interested in this particular audience, on one of those Studio 1-inch 4-track machines. Still the audience when a tape machine gets around to record. And they were wonderful. And by the end of that day, a few important things had happened. One of them being that I'd already decided I wanted to be a record producer. Once I saw what a producer could do, in terms of shaping the song, having ideas, telling brilliant musicians who play infinitely better than I do, telling them what to do, which I think is a miracle. And people actually try out your ideas with you, and it's been a pleasure. And so production has always meant a huge amount to me. Even though I've been very lucky, I get to play so many different roles, writer, performer, broadcaster, consultant, all this other stuff. If I did have to pick one single favorite occupation, it would be record production. So I have to thank for this award not only the TEC committee, but NAMM as a whole, and all the brilliant people who attend NAMM and what they give us, all the great technology, the amazing instruments, the incredible inventions, which of course sonically flourish in the hands of brilliant engineers who are so important to production. I mean, if you think about it, it's no wonder I've been able to make some records that sound pretty good. As engineering, I have worked with Jeff Emmerich, George Massenburg, Nathaniel Kunkel, Lynn Earls, Frank Wolf, Frank Filipetti, Al Schmidt, Ed Cherney, Nico Bolas, Val Garay, and so many more. And there are some brilliant new engineers too, like Susie Shim, who's now become an incredibly successful producer in her own right. And so many great musicians. Obviously Cooch and Wadi and Lee and Russ and all my old friends, but so many terrific players out there now too. And so many beautiful instruments and devices. I admire them all. Everything from my original 1964 J200, which is my favorite acoustic guitar in the world, to my favorite 251, which is my favorite microphone, and all the cool plugins that they keep inventing. Because Melodyne could do things now that if I talked about them in 1960 would have sounded like science fiction. And finally, of course, there are all those great songwriters and great artists. Having worked with Linda and James and Bonnie and Neil Diamond and Randy and Natalie Merchant and so on, and Diana Ross, I feel privileged. Sitting there and listening to them sing has been an unmitigated privilege and joy. I remember the first time I was in a studio with Diana, we hadn't done a vocal yet, and we were all set up, and I was sitting there, and she started singing, and I couldn't stop myself. I was like, holy shit, she sounds exactly like Diana Ross. Which shouldn't have been surprising, but I'm somebody who had every Supreme single memorized, and there was that amazing voice, So those voices continue to impress me. And I'm now having the privilege of working with Suzanna, whose voice I loved, on all those records and love now. And the album has been a great pleasure. I thank you for all those nice things you said. It was amazing. So I thank everyone here at NAMM. I thank the good fortune that I have in that I'm so far neither deaf nor dead. And thanks above all for the fact that I'm still working. That talented people still ask me to come and help them make a record. And there is literally nothing in the world I would rather be doing than that. I couldn't have done it. Certainly without all of you. I thank very much my own team, Jeff Allen Ross, Keith Putney, who keep everything on track, both musically and organizationally and everything else, and I appreciate that very much. And in particular, I appreciate the recognition given me by all of you. Now, if I may, I'm going to end by actually moving to the other microphone and taking you back to that day in January 1964. So bear with me. Because on that day, we did cut about 5 tracks. And by the end of the day, there was no doubt in anyone's mind which song was going to be our first single. And it came out a month later and went to #1 all over the world and changed my life forever. So I owe this song a debt of gratitude. And it was a Paul McCartney song that he'd written and left unfinished because John didn't like it. I heard it. The Beatles were not going to record it. And I asked Paul when we had our record deal if we could have it. He said yes, and that's the song that changed my life forever. So it also does make a very good sing-along. So I'm going to ask you to join me for this rendition. Now, I recognize that some of you may be thinking, oh my God, this record was #1 60 years ago. How am I possibly supposed to know it? And of course that could be true, but you'll actually find out that if you start singing, through the mists of time, those of you who are old, and even if those of you who are young might have heard it on the oldie station, some of it may come back to you. So I urge you to please join in and sing with me. And actually, by the time we get to the last verse, I'm so confident that you will totally be nailing it. Because the last verse is the same as the first verse, so you can get to the last. By the time we get to the last verse, I'm going to leave the track to you. We're going to stop, and you're going to sing the last verse by yourselves. So please join me for the special NAMM version of World Without Love. 2, 3, 4.
Please lock me away and don't allow the day here inside where I hide with my loneliness. I don't care what they say, I won't stay in a world without love. Birds sing out of tune,
Hello again. I'm going to do some guitar strumming styles from around the world. Okay, so first thing we're going to start with is I'm going to do Instagram strumming, which is like this. It's always sort of up high so that the phone can like... I'm going to do, this is how guitar players strum in Australia. They do minor chords into major chords really fast, like don't go down there anymore. Great driving. New Zealand, same kind of thing, but it's a little bit lighter, you know, sort of like candlelight in the window. Canada is kind of like a little funky little. And then the United States strumming style is very like dun 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 dun. So it's like it's kind of. And Americans like to pretend like they can't hit a note when they sing. It's sort of I told you that they put it away. Central America, kind of like in 3/4, but no te dijo otra vez, no te dijo otra vez, otra vez. Brazil is kind of like really up close onto what's that? Brazil is kind of right up into the mic, kind of. Let's see, and then if you go over the Atlantic, going over to England. England is very syncopated, and it goes like da 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 da. So if you're in England, it's kind of like. I saw her by the riverbed. I statuesque figure. And even with punk, same kind of thing. Da 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 da. Don't go to the ambulance. Don't go to the ambulance. Ireland is very one chord. Norwegians like to show you that they're playing the guitar. So, and then I'm going to end it with Italy. Italy they have a tempo that we're not used to. It's like a little slower than we listen to, sort of like. And they sing kind of like, they tighten their vocal cords like tutto bene, quanti fagioli ci sono nel bicchiere. That's all I can do. That's drumming styles from around the world. Our next presenters come from two very different worlds, but they both make memorable sounds. One in the studio, one all over the planet. She went from behind the counter at Tower Records in West Hollywood to an amazing and groundbreaking career behind the boards as a producer, an engineer, and a mixer of a long list of remarkable albums. And he is from the streets of New York and has become a DJ and tastemaker who has brought an incredible blend of soul music to just about every corner of the globe. Please welcome Suzanna Mossey and OP.
Well, I'm going to introduce the first category, but I have to say it's a real coincidence because right now we've been building an Atmos room upstairs, up in Oregon.
Nice.
And maybe we'll get nominated for this award next year.
Hopefully so.
I agree.
Our next presenter is a brilliant songwriter, guitar player, and singer from one of the greatest bands, the Bangles. Her voice is one of those voices that I love, but I feel like everyone loves. Just hearing her sing makes everything in the room completely stop. And you can tell in her music and talking to her about bands that she's also a total music fan. We are all so lucky to have her be a part of our lives. Here with this very special presentation, please welcome Suzanna Hoffs.
Thank you, Fred. I'm absolutely thrilled to be the person who gets to acknowledge Peter Asher tonight in his long career of musical excellence and the joy and creativity he has brought to all of us. At the height of the pandemic, I got a call that Peter was interested in working with me on a record. That call was like sunlight breaking through the clouds. It was hope and joy. Peter had produced records that changed my life and cemented my path as a musician. James Taylor's Sweet Baby James, and Linda Ronstadt's Heart Like a Wheel. I taught myself to sing along to these records. I literally wore out the vinyl. Peter's productions enchanted me and shaped me. I don't know that I'd be doing this, making music, life's work, without the influence of those records. Peter's musical touch and sensitivity are unique. Every moment and the spaces between moments are a lesson in craft and artistry, singular to Peter Asher.
Please lock me away. With those words, Peter and Gordon took the forgotten Lennon-McCartney song "A World Without Love" to #1 on the charts. It launched a 5-year reign as British pop royalty, and for Peter Asher, a career of 6 decades that has spanned and helped shape the history of modern pop music. From the British invasion of the 60s to the California rock of the 70s, pop pioneer Peter Asher had a fundamental influence on the course of contemporary music that is still felt today.
I'd like to introduce 2 young men who have been hailed as the greatest import since the Beatles, and have gold records to prove it.
It began in 1962 when a teenage Peter and school friend Gordon Waller formed a duo, singing Everly Brothers style harmonies. Those were the days, my friend. When Peter and Gordon broke up, former housemate Paul McCartney asked Peter to join the Beatles' newly founded Apple Records. There, he helped sign Mary Hopkin, Jackie Lomax, and Badfinger. But the artist that changed everything was a young, unknown American. His name was James Taylor.
Yes, I'm gone to Carolina in the mine.
Asher produced Taylor's debut album for Apple. It wasn't a hit, but he was so certain of the talent, he resigned from Apple and moved to the U.S. to manage James.
And rock-a-bye, my sweet baby James.
Asher continued to produce many of James Taylor's albums, including Sweet Baby James, for which he received his first Grammy nomination. And Mudslide Slim and the Blue Horizon, featuring the indelible Carole King cover, You've Got a Friend. Recommended by James's sister Kate, Asher took on another vocalist with a timeless voice, Linda Ronstadt, and he produced a remarkable series of albums for her. In LA, Asher set up one of the most respected management companies in the business. He handled Taylor, Ronstadt, and others from his office around the corner from the famed Troubadour, epicenter of the exploding folk rock movement, and close to the Roxy Theater, in which he was an early investor along with fellow managers Lou Adler, Elliot Roberts, and David Geffen. Asher played a pivotal role in shaping the California rock sound, producing records for Randy Newman, Kenny Loggins, J.D. Souther, Andrew Gold, and Bonnie Raitt, as well as Neil Diamond and Diana Ross. He worked on hits highlighted albums for artists as diverse as Cher's Love Hurts and 10,000 Maniacs' breakout In My Tribe. And he produced his friend Robin Williams' Grammy-winning Best Comedy Album. Spending a decade in the corporate world, Asher joined Sony Music Entertainment as Senior Vice President before returning to management as President of Sanctuary Artists. In 2007, Asher reunited with James Taylor to produce Live the Troubadour, the reunion album with Carole King and Taylor's original band, The Section. Asher's body of work has earned him 13 Grammy nominations, twice winning the coveted Producer of the Year award. And he's also been honored with the CBE, Commander of the British Empire from Her Majesty the Queen. It has been an extraordinary ride. In recent years, Peter has toured with guitar legend Albert Lee and with Jeremy Clyde of sibling 60s duo Chad and Jeremy, as well as with his own group, which includes Kate Taylor, Albert Lee, and Leland Sklar. Peter also continues to regale new generations of audiences with his legendary tales, publishing a book about his personal reminiscences with the Beatles, hosting a Beatles radio program, and touring with his multimedia stage show. From London to Los Angeles, pop singer to top producer, personal manager to music professor, Peter Asher has lived, overseen, and chronicled the living history of popular music for more than half a century.
I don't care what they say, I won't stay in a world without love.
I feel like I've known Peter my entire life. I remember being entranced by the sound of his voice coming through the car radio as a little girl. A World Without Love is one of my earliest memories of hearing voices blending together, and it most definitely informed the sound of my band, the Bangles. I could never have imagined in that moment what getting to know Peter as a human and as an artist would mean to me. Peter, Wendy, and their daughter Victoria welcomed me into their world this past year. They are like family now, and Peter is a cherished friend and collaborator. I often say that music reminds us of what it is to be alive, to be human, to be connected. Working with Peter and his dream team of musicians was the ultimate connection. Jeff Allen Ross, Cooch, Danny Korchmar, Leland Sklar, Waddy Wachtel, Russ Kunkel, and Albert Lee. If you were a fly on the wall during the tracking process of our record, you would have seen me dancing the Watusi through the whole experience. I have the greatest love and respect for these artists and our producer extraordinaire. The always dapper, the discerning, the perfectionistic, the dedicated, and now the newest member of the NAMM TEC Hall of Fame, the dear Mr. Peter Asher.
I truly feel honored. It's an extraordinary thing to happen, and I thank you all very much, especially to this audience. It means so much, and I really appreciate it.